I'm James Conrad. I'm a writer. I've got 3 novels out: Ideal Man, Copperhead, which is downloadable as an ebook, and Lucky Dennis, my most recent, which I am promoting at the Hotel Utah. We're coming into the twilight of that residency. I also write political commentary for latest.com, and I've got a whole portfolio, just dozens of articles. I'd like to share one of those with you tonight. This is an issue of great political and social importance, something in our society that's kind of pissing me off very much. And, you know, this is especially important, particularly for the women in the house. Anyway, it's all in this letter to Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook. This is dated June the 13th, 2014. It was written in Oakland, California. Attention, Mark Zuckerberg. On the one hand, perhaps I should be grateful that Facebook has enabled me opportunities to catch up with friends I have not seen since moving from New Haven, Connecticut to the San Francisco Bay Area, and has helped me to advance by leaps and bounds in my writing career. Despite all that, I have a pretty sharp bone to pick with you. Having recently become friendly with the Dandy Warhols, an internationally famous rock band from Portland, Oregon, and particularly their keyboardist, bassist, and percussionist Zia McCabe, it has come to my attention that when she published pictures from the World Naked Bike Ride in Portland, she was kicked off Facebook for a spell, and the pictures were deleted, despite the fact that there was nothing sexually exploitative, much less sexual, about them. In the case of one particular photo, showing Zia in a red fishnet body stocking and white leather boots, smiling to the camera and backlit by the sun, we do not have an example of the exploitation of women. In fact, considering the symmetry and the effect provided by the unfiltered natural light, it would be fair to say that this photo is art. Gasp, shock, and awe. Meanwhile, people post photographs of such horrors as maimed and slaughtered animals and scenes of war, crime, police brutality, you name it. Personally, I offer no prizes guessing as to which would be more traumatizing to look at while perusing social media. Any of the above, or a tasteful nude study of the human figure. I do recognize that some of the more violent imagery I've described draws necessary attention to the legitimate problems in our society. That being said, I have seen numerous objections to people posting the gory stuff, for which I offer no blame. To be fair, I recognize that you have loosened your policy regarding nudity to allow Facebook users to post pictures of women breastfeeding their babies. However, the fact that you are allowing one form of non-sexual nudity and not another, coupled with the fact that far more disturbing imagery gets a pass, makes for a twofold double standard and gives me the awful impression that you are more or less casually pandering to people who think Zia's tits make her a bad girl. As such, this gives me the awful impression that you are shaming and objectifying her under the guise of trying to protect her and already sheltered, but probably also already damaged, children from each other and themselves, all the while perpetuating the self-licking ice cream cone of sexual immaturity that has tainted our society, and in particular laid the groundwork for such tragedies as the recent massacre in Isla Vista, perpetrated by a childish, spoiled, and certifiably insane young man who is steered wrong by a sexist society that pigeonholes women into degrading stereotypes. I also noticed that the powers that be at Facebook made an earlier attempt to censor the thumbnails of photographs within my article about Zia being targeted. This proved ineffective as Zia, pleased by the write-up, shared the link, which was then shared again numerous times over. Come to think of it, in the end, your initial attempt at censorship proved ineffective, as Zia posted the photos in a blog article on the Dandy Warhols website, and I myself picked the 3 that I liked best and republished them in my article on latest.com. Now that I think about that, I have noticed that there are secret groups on Facebook in which the members share pornographic photos. Also on Facebook, there are numerous models, burlesque dancers and photographers, some of which are among my friends, who have pictures within their portfolios that contain varying degrees of undress. Suffice it to say, certain people have been exceeding at making your restrictions on nudity impossible to enforce for quite a while, and who can blame them? Nonetheless, whereas I agree with Facebook making restrictions against outright pornography, despite the fact that people will always find ways around these restrictions, I cannot overstate that a more thoughtful and open-minded attitude be taken when ascertaining the difference between art and smut. Then again, I also realize that people who use Facebook ought to remember that they have numerous ways of nixing content that they do not want to see in their newsfeed, and they don't need a bunch of nerds and bots telling them what they should and should not see. And furthermore, how the hell come I can post JPEGs of such paintings as Titian's Venere di Urbino and Gustave Courbet's L'Origine du Monde, both of which contain female nudity? Now that I think about it, would that one picture of Zia in the box smiling to the camera with the sun on her shoulders be considered less offensive if it had been rendered in watercolor or oil paint? Looks like I just counted another double standard, bringing the total to 3. With that, I advise you to re-evaluate your policy concerning nudity, lest you defeat your purpose of actually protecting anybody, and especially any women. On that note, I would like to mention that Zia's time in the penalty box needlessly hindered an interview I have been conducting with her for Latest.com, a progressive news and editorial website. I believe that such an institute constitutes an interference with current and prospective economic relations, both for myself and for Latest.com. Considering that, I sure am glad that everything was worked out on all fronts, because let me tell you, I was so pissed off about that in particular that I didn't know whether to go and find out what kind of protection I'm afforded under the law, or just send endless boxes of bricks, COD, to 1601 Willow Road, Menlo Park, California, 94025. I'm just being honest, but because you are a billionaire and I'm not, I don't expect you to understand how I feel when people interfere with my livelihood, even inadvertently. Since your company's whack-ass bullshit policy made it difficult for me to do my job, I thought for a second that maybe it would only be fair if a bunch of nerdy prudes had a tough time doing theirs. That's all. Hey. It would have all been in good fun, and at least nobody would have died or been seriously hurt. To be sure, I don't feel that way anymore. For now. Nonetheless, I'm still pissed off about all the double standards. Seriously, change your goddamn rules, Facebook. Sincerely, James Jeffrey Parfit Conrad. Thank you.